Out of the Ordinary Insights, brought to you by Investec Specialist Bank.
Welcome back to Captains of Industry. Still with me in the studio, this week's Captain of Industry is Clive Smith. Clive is the CEO of Tsebo Outsourcing Group. Clive, a moment ago I talked about what worries you in the South African economy, and perhaps we could just take it a bit more broadly. We see in the mining sector, for example, there's been great tension between government and business, a lack of communication, a need for statesmanship. At one extreme, people say the role of business is just to do business, and at the other extreme, people say business has got to solve all the problems of society. Where do you think your kind of business and where business should be in this society?
I'm on the latter side of your explanation. If you'd asked me 10 years ago or 15 years ago, what am I? I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a capitalist. You ask me today, I'd say to you, I'm an entrepreneur who's heading towards a socialist. We live in a global economy where there haves and have-nots. And the gap between those two paradigms is just so vast that unless we can bring the people up from the bottom, we're going to have problems, and that we're not going to survive. If we translate that into Africa or translate that into South Africa, it's exacerbated. In
your industry, do you have to speak for the industry to government? You know, there are lots of representative organisations. One wonders sometimes if it would be better just for individual companies to do, but there's so many of them.
We do speak ad hoc to government. We're not seen as by government as an industry which leads the economy. We're a non-core industry, and therefore we're on the peripheral economy. But we do speak to government. We're heavily involved in discussions with Labour on how to solve some of the social problems at the bottom. We are a large employer with almost 20,000. I think we'll be over 20,000 people by sort of March next year.
Should government speak out? Should business rather speak out more on government issues?
I think that business should assist government in solving the issues. Government spends money. Business creates opportunity. Yes. So by creating opportunity, I think we can help solve problems. We can give numerous examples. Our group was one of the first. In fact, we were recognised by United Nations with our work done in HIV/AIDS in 98, 99, up to 2000, 2003, where we changed eating patterns of the employees we feed to help them manage their HIV infections.
It's what you do as much as what you say.
It's what we do. If we take training, we do a huge amount of training. Enterprise development, we do a huge amount of enterprise development. We just launched a product under our FM brand, which is called Drake & Skull Delivery, where we've taken our products which aim to service the high-end customers. We've refined the systems, and we've put training processes around those systems to take enterprise development, the man in the Bucky Brigade, and train him up to be a low-end enterprise development, self-owned, owner-managed business to manage facility services at the low end, plumbing, etc. Now, if we can do that and we can create a platform of 1,000 of these people, we can get quality up. We think we can create 5,000, 10,000 jobs through
Again,
that.
It's what you do rather than what you say.
It's what we do.
Make a contribution. Let's come back to your own background. And you mentioned 1971 as if that was when you started at FedEx. Was that when you started?
No, it wasn't when
FedEx?
I started FedEx.
Where did you start?
I started in 1992. I'm just over 50 right now. I'm an accountant by trade. I studied to be a chartered secretary. So I started with FedEx in 1992 as a financial manager. I then moved up through the ranks, and I went into operations in 1994. I was group procurement director for a while. I was CEO of our catering division, CEO of our FM division. I took over the group in 2003. So I've been through the trenches in the company, finance background.
What made you go into the finance in the first place before you got into this business?
When I was a kid, my parents had some foresight and sent me for psychometric testing, and they said that it's a field that I would enjoy and do well in. So that steered me into finance.
I hope they didn't send you when you were 3. You know, you heard about these violinists being trained.
I was in grade 11, and they sent me off some testing.
Right. The school you were at, where you grew up?
I was at Wynberg Boys in Cape Town. And then I studied at Cape Tech, and I did a CIS, which was the international qualification in those days.
Now, Wynberg Boys, great old boys' school, one of those.
Jacques Cullis.
That's right, Jacques Cullis.
Rob Lowe in rugby, and we've had some very, very good sportsmen come.
And one of the old schools, and one of those schools, there are about 3 dozen of them, that is a very important part of public education as opposed to private education. Do you still keep in touch? Do you support your old school?
We support the school. There's an old boys, Wynberg Boys got a very, very strong old boys network. One of my classmates is the chairman of the Old Boys Network at the moment, and the school is a good school, and continues to be a good school.
Cape Town to Johannesburg, what was your route?
I was transferred up by the organisation in 1996 when I was Ops Director of Cape Town, and they asked me to take over the group procurement role, and I was transferred up on what was then an 18-month project. And then it went on from there.
Right. Looking at that route, if you hadn't taken the route you did, I mean, it's all very well to identify one area, but there would be a second and a third choice. What else might you have done? I mean, you've ended up in the food business. You probably didn't expect that when they said that you should go into finance.
Well, joining the Feddies Group, as it was in those days, with now Tsebo Outsourcing Group, I spent quite a bit of time in manufacturing and food manufacturing. So I was with Dairy Bar for a point in time, and I was with Albany Bakeries for a point in time. So my background understanding food production and the microcosm of the finance control of food production did prepare me for where I am at the moment. Every one of our units on the food side of the business is a manufacturing unit. On the FM side of the business, it's like running a big factory. We've got to look after space controls and logistics and planning and reception. So it has prepared me for it.
If you had your time again, would you have taken a different course? Is there something else that you said, gee, you know, I wouldn't have minded? Well, let's say you would have done this, but what else might you have done?
When I was at school, I wanted to become a marine biologist. One of my hobbies is scuba diving. So if I had a chance over and I wasn't married and didn't have children and I could float around the world, I still have a passion for underneath the water.
And you do that? You go out diving?
I scuba dive. Not as much as I'd like to. My daughter's my dive buddy, and every now and again we get to go and experience the water and see what happens.
You mentioned very quickly that Jacques Collis is a Wynberg old boy. Rugby, cricket, soccer, golf, all of these, none of these?
I was a very ineffective cricketer at school and a very ineffective rugby player. I'm an avid sportsman, I enjoy it, I'm not great.
On the weekend, if you can choose what you're doing, you've mentioned diving. Do you sit in front of the TV all day watching a test match?
I would sit in front of the TV and watch a one-day game, or I'd watch a test match if it gets exciting. I would try to get to gym. I love spinning. I used to cycle heavily.
I want your view on, the cricket team has done very well in test cricket, but they're alleged to be chokers, or they get confident and then they collapse. It's that thing in South African rugby, I've always said, it's either arrogance or despair. There's nowhere in between. And then, of course, the soccer team the other night, they talked about nerves on the big occasion. As a businessman who has to wake up every morning and take the pressure, what's your reading of these, of choking and nerves? Why are these guys being accused of this?
I think it probably goes to leadership and preparation. There has to be an extent of nerves. If we take the 1995 rugby team that won the World Cup, they weren't the best, but they were well prepared. They had passion, they had soul, they had heart. And I think it comes down to that. I feel sorry for the soccer team, because the soccer team don't play in the country together all the time. So they're very disadvantaged that some of the key players are global players.
But do you buy an excuse of nerves in the opening game?
Well, I don't know if I buy the excuse of nerves, but they certainly failed. And by not performing, something caused it. And there's some exceptional players in the team. So I think that the team just doesn't gel. And that's got to do with leadership and with pulling the team together.
Talking of which, you must have learned a couple of lessons about leadership. And I think it was Dwight D. Eisenhower said leadership is getting someone to do something that he doesn't want to do, but you persuade him that actually he does, and he gets to do it. What are some of the things you've picked up? There must have been times when you've had to deal with a situation where everyone turns to you to see what to do and to motivate them.
Absolutely. I think leadership is 80% of my role.
How do your people know you're a leader? What is it that you do that makes them feel that there's leadership?
There are half a dozen items which I advocate. The first item is you have to remain calm, steady hand on the tiller. When there's pressure, lead from the front. Explain to people what you want done and let them follow. Get to the heart and soul of the people and make them passionate about what they want to do. We find one of the issues that we face in our business, we distribute a business, we operate over 4,000 sites. So how do we get to people who don't see? So communication is a huge, huge issue.
Have you learned any tricks there?
And
I don't mean that in a cheap way.
No. I went on a course probably in the early 90s with a lady called Karen Myers, and I've never forgotten the experience. And she put a graph up and said there are 3 ways people listen. They hear you, they see you, or they feel you. And ever since then, what we've been doing is every time we communicate, we have to do it verbally We've got to do it by an active presentation so people can see it and touch it, and we've got to go and debate it with them so they can feel it. And then the message gets through. Once you get to a certain penetration level of the message, then the hearts and souls and minds of your colleagues in the business will follow you with it. The other trick that we've learned is that when we do want to communicate something strategically or something which is very imperative, we go to the top and we go to the bottom. So we go through the formal channel of the layers of management, but we bypass all those channels and we do a succinct message at the bottom to tell the guys at the bottom what to expect to come through management. So we prepare them for it so when the message arrives with them, they understand what's going to come. So there's some very, very clear tricks that we can use to communicate.
You've been a chief executive, I think you said, for 10 years, since
9 years
2003.
now with the group.
Your toughest day, your toughest moment where you said, wow, this is now I'm really being tested.
Oh, at least many, many of those.
Pick one.
I walked in, I was still MD of one of the divisions, and I walked in, there was a strike the next morning, and I'd just taken over that day. We had to mobilize and service our customers, and with a strike coming the next day. That was a tough one to get to the customers.
Did you obey your own rules then? Keep calm?
Absolutely, we obeyed the rules. Got the guys prepared. We walked around the office and said everybody's here at 4 tomorrow morning. Another lesson which I learned from one of the labour unionists, very wise guy who's given us some advice, is that the power in labour negotiations swings from the unions to management the day that the strike notice is issued. So when you negotiations with labour, the power's on the side of labour while they're bantering and they're negotiating with you, because management want to keep the situation calm and keep continuity. The minute they issue the strike notice, their balance of power equalises. And management do what they do best, is they start preparing. The minute that the workers walk out on strike, the balance of power moves invariably to the company if they can survive the first 28 or 48 hours on a continuity basis. And that's also one of the lessons we've learned through the process, is how to keep continuity under whatever circumstances in our business.
Can you fire people?
In my 30 years of working, I think I've fired 2 people. The one was for sexual harassment, and the other one was for being drunk. I've never had to fire people. You know, you can talk to people, you can motivate people, you can change people, and if they can't change, they'll leave. If they don't join the culture. So you got to do something very harsh before I will say. I fired a third one that was for racism. You got to do something very harsh.
3 good reasons by the sound of it. We'll have to stop there. It's been fascinating. That's all we have time for today. Until next week, from me, David Williams, and the team, it's goodbye.